Welcome back, everybody. And now it's time for our grassroots citizen panel. And joining me in the studio is Melory Tsipouria. He's president of the U.S.-Georgia Friendship Association. And we're not talking peanuts when we say Georgia. We're talking Eastern Europe.
That's right.
All right. Seated next to Melory is Michael Wilson. Michael's a whistleblower attorney. I'm not saying he blew the whistle. He represents people blowing the whistle. And also an entertainment attorney out of Los Angeles. Good to see you, Michael.
Good to see you, too, Rick.
I can't bring you on without talking about Bridezilla. He appeared on Bridezilla.
He'll never let that one go. I don't blame you.
And joining us from Washington, D.C. is a multimedia reporter with the Capital City Project, Joe Schofstall. Joe, I understand you're one of those people who do know what the word jagoff means.
Of course I know what jagoff is. I'm from Penn Hills, PA, which is about 15 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. And in D.C., I call people jagoffs, and they have no idea what I'm saying. It's probably better that way, though.
Tell us about the Capital City Project real briefly, please.
The Capital City Project, summed up, is basically an investigative unit of me and a couple other people in D.C. And what we do is we try to be nonpartisan, but we obviously do lean a little bit to the right. It's basically trying to stay with stories that people aren't talking about, or we also piggyback off national news stories, but it's long-term investigations, and we're working on some really good stuff right now to make that the short of the long.
All right, well, there's the brief description. We appreciate it. Okay, one story everyone is talking about is Iraq, and you know, let's face it, it's a mess. We had on David Rubin from Shiloh, Israel earlier, and he gave us the perspective from Israel. What I find stunning here is, I mean, there's something stunning every week with this administration. Now, President Obama, as we try and figure out, or as he tries to figure out what the strategy is in terms of containing what's happening or quelling what's happening, he tells Congress, I don't need permission to act on Iraq. I don't need your permission to do what I feel needs to be done in Iraq. I want to start with Michael Wilson. Michael, could you imagine if President George W. Bush had said that? There would be outrage, as there should be, in this media and this pop culture narrative. I don't think anyone even notices it.
Right. I actually don't see that big of a deal. There's a couple of reasons why.
Would you have been okay if George Bush said that?
You know what? He almost said that. I mean, if you look at executive actions, executive orders.
He may have almost, but he went through Congress and got approval.
Okay. But you know what, though? Arguably, President Obama still has approval from Congress because they authorized the military force in Iraq in 2001 and 2003. I would like to say the irony out of all of this is that the aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, is being sent to Iraq by President Obama.
It is very ironic. When I read that, I thought it was a punchline when I first read that in the news story. But, you know, I suppose you're right that he still has technically approval from the original congressional approval.
Right.
But it's how you word things, Melory. And his wording wasn't like, well, you know, I already have approval. His wording was, I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care what you think.
Correct. I think it's a dangerous trend with this administration, especially considering that time and time again they ignore the rules and laws, starting with 35 czars and suspending some of the rules when it's convenient for them. So I think nothing wrong with, seeking consent from Congress, especially on such an important issue as conflict in Iraq.
I was going to say, I think part of it is the frustration and the fact that the conservatives have been obstructionists during this whole administration.
Yeah.
And so that's part of, I think,
of course they have.
Let's right there.
Joe Schofstall, let's give this administration free reign. Let's give them everything. I mean, they've done such a great job with everything already. Let's let them have more reign. Why obstruct? What's your take on presidents saying, hey, you don't need to go through Congress? Imagine if George Bush had said that.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, you still have liberals who use the talking point that George Bush never got congressional approval for Iraq, which is false. Like you said, he did. And to this day, these are the same people who defend and say Obama doesn't need congressional approval now. So it doesn't really add up, the whole logic of everything. He said he was going to send 300 advisors to Iraq. Those are special forces. What are special forces? Those are essentially ground troops. So he's saying, I'm not sending troops back, maybe not in a large number, but he is sending troops back, per se. So you can like wish-wash this any which way you want, but he's sending foot soldiers back, which, I mean, we do need to probably intervene right now with the uprising. It's a civil war. The problem with Iraq is these people are always going to be fighting. No matter if we're there or not, they're going to be fighting for thousands of years. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to stop.
And that's
but
why
at this moment in time, we do need.
Yeah, and that's why, Michael, I thought you were wrong for supporting George Bush and going into Iraq. All right.
Well, can I add one thing to this? Real quick. I mean, when you talk about congressional authority, President Obama has only 183 executive orders. President George W. Bush, had 291.
All right. I get that. But there's a difference in terms of how you use executive orders.
True.
And President Obama's have been much more bombastic, let's just say. All right, when we come back, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start with Michael Wilson on this next topic. He's a whistleblower attorney. Yeah. I would imagine he would be licking his chops to represent someone within the IRS. We'll find out. You're watching the Rick Amato Show on One America News. We're back with our Grassrootsism panel right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Like I said earlier, if you're new to watching the Rick Amato Show here on the One America News Network, I want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to check us out. But we also love to hear from you, to let me know what's on your mind, good, bad, or indifferent. You can email me directly, rickamato@oann.com. Takes me a few weeks, but I get there and I answer all email personally. Follow me on Twitter at Amato Talk and on Facebook at Rick Amato and the Rick Amato Show. All right, we're in our Grassrootsism panel. And so it's just really, really coincidental. It's just kind of serendipitous, if you will, that Lois Lerner's hard drive crashed. And now we find out it didn't just crash, it's been thrown away. And guess what? So have the hard drives are showed up missing of 6 other IRS officials involved in the targeting of conservative groups. In fact, one official that met with a President Obama top assistant, his email is now missing. And I want to go to Michael Wilson. You are a whistleblower attorney. This must be something you would have, you'd be in hog's heaven over.
Well, Rick, hard drives do crash. Yeah, you know, I think what we're seeing now is you get into like just any fraud, it's like an onion, and the more you peel the layers, you're getting to the root of the fraud. And so, you know, hard drives do crash.
Of course.
However, there seems to be too many linkages happening occurring right now.
Yeah.
And so I would have great concern, you know, at this point.
And you're right. Everyone knows that you start peeling that layer of the onion back, or however you phrased it. These folks in D.C., the administration, know that. As someone who's been inside of trials similar to this, is there some, you suppose there's some angst growing within that White House?
Well, there is. And the curious thing to me is anytime you anticipate litigation, you know, you have a duty to preserve electronic discovery documents. And so I find it very curious how these emails weren't preserved. But I know where you could probably get the emails from.
Server?
No, the NSA.
NSA, right. Let's go to Joe Schofstall. He's a reporter in D.C. Joe, I'll tell you, one group of people who did get the email from the IRS and haven't lost them are those that were being investigated by the IRS. Somehow, those emails magically showed up in their inbox. Your take on all this?
Well, of course, I mean, like you were saying, hard drives, of course they crash, but the timing of the 2 years, the hard drives they lost, it's a little suspicious, but emails are not stored on hard drives. They're stored in servers. But they said they have protocols. 6 months afterwards, they have to wipe out all the information for, you know, security purposes. But Nicole Flax, the one lady who was, her emails that disappeared, on May 8th of 2013, Lois Lerner wrote her an email saying, I got a call from somebody at the DOJ. He heard what Senator Whitehouse said about some groups who may have lied about their information on their 1024s. Is there any way you could find this information and we could piece it together at the IRS? So what the DOJ was effectively doing, Obama's DOJ, was contacting Obama's IRS and saying, we have no evidence of this. Can you guys put together evidence of this? Nicole Flax wrote back and said, I think we should do this. Lois Lerner, she seemed hesitant to do this. And Nicole Flax was the one like saying, I think we should do this. We should reach out to other groups like the FEC. So she wanted to bring other groups and other government agencies into this with there wasn't one iota of evidence that there was any wrongdoing by the conservative groups at this time. So basically you had Senator Whitehouse say something, the DOJ hear it, because he said, I wonder if the DOJ can do this for us. So the guy calls Lois Lerner and she emails Nicole Flax. And from that point on, we don't know what happened.
If I may.
Go ahead.
With that whole ordeal.
DOJ is already tainted in this investigation. I think this situation warrants special prosecutor to investigate and to get to the bottom of it.
I think there's a lot of Americans who would agree with you, including perhaps Michael Wilson on that one.
Well, I work with the DOJ, and I think they're great, but I think you do need an independent prosecutor at this point.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to shift gears here for a second and talk about something briefly, because I think it's important for our viewers. It's something you're following closely, Melory Tsipouria. Would you make it real quick? Again, you're president of U.S.-Georgia Friendship Association. You follow events in Russia closely. During the break, you had shared with our panel members here that the public support among the Russian citizens in Russia is beginning to collapse for Vladimir Putin.
Yes, because even though I've been advocating harsh sanctions, and finally right now U.S. is talking about with its Western allies targeting industry sectors, but those limited sanctions had some effect, and Russian people are realizing that Putin is destroying Russia in the long run. So when there are economic problems coming to the forefront, so that's why his public support is waning. Now, there are two things that happened.
Quickly.
May 25th, a new Ukrainian president was elected. He's a pro-Western politician,
right.
Petro Poroshenko. And also, Putin is keeping his annexation course in eastern Ukraine. There are clashes going on between the Ukrainian forces and the Russian separatists, supported totally by Putin and arming and financed by him. So I think this third round of sanctions will be most effective.
I wanted to get that out there because it's something I think is of surprise to a lot of our viewers, is that that the Putin support within Russia is beginning to not turn out the way he had anticipated. All right, shifting gears here to start with Michael Wilson. The federal government is piecing together a sweeping national biosurveillance program where basically they can check on the health records of every American anytime, all in the name of national security. George Orwell is looking down, smiling or frowning or turning over in his grave, whatever. It's 1984. It's reality. Does this trouble you as much as it troubles me?
No, I think people who are shocked about this have been living completely off the grid, in fact. And the reason why I say that is that, the government also gets their data from places like IMS Health, which, is a social intelligence, intelligence gathering company from all of big pharma. So they have all this medical information. You, as a consumer, can also get some of this information. Big pharma has all this information already.
But the government, in this case, the government wants real-time access to Americans' health records. Why do they need that?
Well, where they're doing it in terms of the health, the protection, and safety of its citizens. And that's why they're looking, for example, suppose there's a new virus that's spreading or something like that. They're getting new real-time. But real-time, the pharma companies already have real-time data. In places like IMS Health, they have that data. So to me, it's not a big deal.
So why does the government need more of it right now?
That I don't know. I can't answer.
All right, well, listen. I haven't seen real-time access of health records prevent any spread of viruses and prevent society from decaying up in the last couple hundred years in America, so I don't know what this is going to do. We're out of time. I want to thank Joe Shofstoff, a reporter for the Capital City Project in Washington, D.C. Don't be a jagoff. I want to thank Michael Wilson, whistleblower attorney here in San Diego, and Melory Tsipouria, president of the U.S.-Georgia Friendship Association. Thanks for being part of our grassroots citizen panel. And I want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. We're right back at you again tomorrow night, same time, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific.